Three, two. All right. Joining the sit down now is a special guest, and I am really excited to do this. And I will say, we talk about the mafia on this show, we talk about drug gangs, we talk about that kind of history. But I've come across a guy that I think we needed to interview, we needed to talk to, a guy that has a fascinating life. He's interacted with some fascinating people, but he's also changed his life for the better. He's got a really interesting story, as I said. And I want to kind of tell a quick story before we get into his story. This book right here, okay, I can't remember where I found this book. I can't remember how I even got into to finding it, but I found it. I started reading it, and I became captivated really 3 or 4 pages in, where he kind of just set this crazy story on where he was and the predicament that he was in. And it really hit home for me because, as I've told our guests and I've talked about pretty openly, I have a friend, my best friend. He's in federal prison for pretty much the same charge as our friend that we have on today is in for. And it really hit home to me. And I think his story is just fascinating. I did some research and I found him and I started chatting with him, and he's doing a lot of cool things. So I wanted to get him on the show. His name is Chad Marks. He has a book. It's called Blood on the Razor Wire. We'll get all that later, but Chad joins the show now. Chad, thanks for coming on the sit down. It's really a pleasure to talk to you. I think your story is fascinating.
Well, I appreciate you, bringing me on the show and everything, and glad that you find my story fascinating. I don't know where you want me to start, but
yeah, I think what I really want to start with is we always try to, and again, as I said to you before, you're not a mobster. Nobody said you are, but you have an interesting story, and I want to start at the beginning because it's the first time you and I are talking. Tell me about you. Tell me about your childhood, where you're from. What was your childhood like? What kind of person were you, as a young man? And, what kind of predicament? Did you live in a good home? Did you live in a poor home? What was your life like as a child?
all right. So my name's Chad Marks, right? And we'll get into my story. I was sentenced to a federal mandatory minimum of 40 years, but we're going to talk about how that happened. I grew up in a poor Irish neighborhood when I was a kid. It was Irish and Italian in my neighborhood. It started to turn over, in the late 80s. Things, cocaine and, hopelessness. It was just a bad neighborhood, man. I grew up in the ghetto, man, for real, in upstate New York and in Western New York, Rochester. My father was a drug addict. He was a dope fiend. My mother ended up becoming a single mother, striving to do better for us, working. Then she ended up, on welfare. My brother killed himself. A lot of things just went crazy. And growing up, I was poor. So I didn't like when other kids picked on us, stuff like that. So around the age of 12, 13 years old, I decided I was going to sell cocaine. I seen some of the kids in my neighborhood. They were selling dope. So I decided I wanted to do the same thing. And I progressed, man. I had that entrepreneur spirit. I progressed, ended up going to state prison at the age of 16, got out, went back on a violation for 2 years, was out for 14 months and caught a Fed case, and I was sentenced to a federal mandatory minimum of 40 years, like I mentioned earlier. But yeah, I grew up in a bad neighborhood called Ghost Town, and it really was a ghost town. In the 80s, it was populated by a lot of Puerto Ricans. There was a lot of violence. I seen all that stuff as a young man. I seen people get hit with bats and steal rebar. But, my neighborhood made me a tough kid, for real. And
You said, I heard you say one time that your father was a pretty known person in the neighborhood, but for a lot of the wrong reasons, right?
yeah, 100%. My father was probably the biggest weed dealer in this city at that time, but he was also a drug addict. So he would go on binges, man, and he'd be gone for 7, 8 days. My stepmother would be looking for him. It was just ruthless. But like we talked about earlier though, but my mother and my father were married. And when I was 3, my father had actually shot at us with a shotgun. My mother came home, caught him in bed with her best friend.
Oh my
He
God.
flipped out. She threw me out of a window, and we ended up escaping. She threw me over a fence. My father was shooting at us with a shotgun, and we ended up escaping, making it to my grandmother's house. And from that point on, really, man, my mom was a single mother, man.
Right. And you, as so many people in America deal with, sadly, you go to prison at a young age, you come home, I would imagine, and I'm sure you can tell me, and I actually don't know this, and I'm going to try to guess. You went and tried to get a job. You realized that it's first very difficult to get a job, probably because you have a felony conviction, and you saw the doughboys in the neighborhood making money, getting girls. Like a lot of, I mean, we talk about it all the time on our show when we talk about these young mob guys. They see the guy on the street making a ton of money, and they see their father struggling to make ends meet, and they say, well, I don't want to be that one. I can go do that. And that's where we are, whether you live in, Harlem or you live in rural America. Poverty is poverty, as you know. And I think, at least from what I remember hearing, you got a job at some sort of factory of some sort? It didn't work out for you?
Yeah, I mean, I was selling drugs early on, and I ended up going to prison. So when I get out of prison, I get a job at this pallet company. And I remember my mother being happy, oh, you got a job. So I get this job at this pallet company. I'm working there at midnights, man. And back then, I think they were paying us like $6 an hour, right?
Brutal.
And this dude, I just got out of prison. I had a chip on my shoulder, and the dude's like, hey, stupid, you don't do it that way. And I grabbed the pallet.
How was that?
And I told him, why don't you, I said, you effing do it. Why don't you go fucking do it?
You can say whatever. Yeah.
So I say, yeah, you go fucking do it. And I threw the pallet and I left. I ended up getting another job at a factory. Worked there for about a month. And pretty much it was a punch press machine, right? And I messed the part up. I did something, man. And they fired me. So I took my check, man, and went and bought an 8-ball of cocaine or a quarter ounce. And I turned that quarter ounce into a half ounce into an ounce into a 62, and then it was off to the races after that.
And before
I was paving my way to prison, man. I was building up for a real prison scene.
Because as you know, and as any drug, not whether it's a trafficker or a drug dealer, whoever, there's two ways out, right? You're either going to die or go to prison, right? There are many retired drug dealers, as far as I know, and so you start making money, you start doing things in Rochester. I guess I'll ask you, and if you don't want to talk about it, I get it. Were you the only one doing it, or were there other people involved as well?
Oh, no. They said that I was the leader of a violent drug organization in my city. I mean, there was some violence, man, but not with it. Really, it was a nonviolent crime. That's what I was convicted of.
Right.
Was there violence in the case? There was, man. There was some brutal violence in my case.
But you were basically selling, drugs, and occasionally someone would, something would happen, but it was not you weren't BMF or anything or something like that.
No, nothing like that.
And in a small town like Rochester, I'm sure the federal resources, they're constantly looking at people. And so we kind of fast forwarded to 2003. You're moving drugs, you're moving crack, all this sort of stuff, and you get arrested. And from what I understand, you get the 924C, the stacking 924C, which, why don't you kind of tell the people what that is? It's kind of possessing a firearm in continuance of a drug crime, right?
So what happens is they charge me in a 1-count indictment, right, with cocaine. My mandatory minimum is 10. My maximum is life. They end up superseding the indictment. Now, when they supersede the indictment, the mandatory minimum goes from 10 to 40 because they supersede with 2 924Cs. That is possession of a firearm. You don't even have to be a felon. This is possession of a firearm and furtherance of a drug trafficking crime. The first one comes with 5 years. The second one comes with 25. And they have to be stacked, right? 5 and 25, we're at 30. And then you get 10 years for the crack. And that has to be stacked too. So now my mandatory minimum becomes 40 years. I proceed to trial. I'm convicted. And the judge and the government comes back and asks for life for the drugs plus 30 years for the guns, the 5 and the 25. And the judge says, look, I'm going to act in a moment of compassion for your mother, and I'm going to give you 40 years. So he gives me the mandatory minimum. He skips the guidelines and just hammers me with the statute.
Let me ask you, there's, and I want to get the answer from you because you lived it. There was a story that you were offered 10 years, but your lawyer didn't tell you about it. Is that true?
Yeah, that is true.
So you could have got 10 years. You could have been out in what, 8 or so?
7.5 years.
Yeah. So what happened there?
Well, really what it comes down to is there was a argument where I tell him, hey, look, get rid of the 2-point enhancement for the gun and I'll take the plea, right? He says, all right, let me see what I can do. I know I can't get under the mandatory minimum. Mandatory minimum's 10. But I want to make sure I can get to the 10. That's where I'm trying to go. I'm trying to get to the 10, to the mandatory minimum. Get rid of the 2 points. Well, that never materializes. That's because my lawyer had a death penalty case. That's when the death penalty was rocking in New York back then. They had brought it back. He was more concerned with that case than my case. So at the end of the day, He doesn't take the plea. The government supersedes the indictment. Had he taken the plea agreement, like I instructed him to do, I would have been out of prison probably with the crack amendment and everything. I'd have probably been out of prison in 6.5, 7 years. I'd have been in the halfway house.
So you get 40 years, which, let's just be frank, the government wanted to give you life for a nonviolent drug offense, which is absolutely ridiculous, as we know. You get 40 years, and that's a compassionate 40 years. That's still a lot of time. You're how old? 25-ish?
I was 24 at the time.
There you go. Let me ask you, and I don't know if anyone's ever asked you this, but I'd be fascinated to know. When you heard the words 40 years, what did you think at that moment? Do you remember?
Yeah, I do, man. It was like I always equated this to getting punched in the stomach by Mike Tyson, man. Because It's a feeling, man. It was like a feeling in the stomach, and you're like, damn. But as crazy as this might sound, there's a little bit of a sigh of relief because you got a number, man. You know what I mean? You don't have life.
Yeah, there's no words. It's a number, right?
Yeah, my lawyer, I'd hired a big shot lawyer out of Buffalo at the time, and he came down just for my sentencing. He's like, look, I'm just going to be honest with you. He says, judge is going to give you at least 60 years. He said, but, we're going to appeal it. Just, keep your head up. And I'm like, damn, I hope he gives me the 40. So he gives me I hope he gives me 40 years. Ain't that crazy?
That's crazy. It really is.
So, yeah, man, it's a feeling, man, that, no one can understand unless you've been in them shoes. No one can dance that dance until you put those shoes on, man. It's devastating.
It's really something that, and I've always been fascinated with just, you see so many like sentencing, you see it on TV and stuff, and you see some people that are they're so stoic that they don't even react. And it's just really, I think, the shock. And when they go back to the facility, they just sit there and they think, wow, I'm going to be an old man when I get out of prison or whatever. But you had kind of accepted it. You were just like, hey, were you just kind of like, as long as I don't get life? But you kind of had to think like 40 years seems like way too much for what I did, right?
Of course. But, let me tell you something. And I instantly thought about that Shawshank Redemption movie, right?
Yeah.
Like, for some reason, that popped in my head, man. And I was like, damn, I'm going to be like that dude that got out and couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
And then what you do.
Brooks.
Yeah. And then what you do when you get sentenced like that, what you do is you start thinking about, man, I'm going to get out, but what am I going to do when I'm 64? I started thinking, man, maybe I can get a hot dog car. This is the crazy shit that I was thinking.
Yeah, because the world would be totally different. You were scheduled to be released in 2038, right? Is that about correct? Around then? And I mean, thinking about that now, it's 2021. That's still 17 years from now. In 17 years, Chad, I will be 48 years old. I mean, thinking about that to me is nuts. To think about that in your case, I mean, I think about just like the past year, the coronavirus and all this. I mean, how long it's felt. The thought of that is truly wild. And I'm sure people are listening and they're saying, well, how are we speaking to him if he's here now? And we're going to get into that. But so I want to kind of get into, so you get sentenced. And as some people know and some people don't, they don't just immediately send you away to your spot and you stay there for however long you're going to be. And you felt like, I'm going to be here till I'm in my 60s, and I just have to accept that. So you get the 40 years. Can I ask, what did your co-defendants get? Did they get as much or?
My one co-defendant, the Connect, got 15 years. He had a prior drug felony. He got 15 years, 1 month.
Which your Connect got way less time than you?
Yeah. And
How does that make sense?
And he had a worse record than me.
How does that make sense?
I went to trial. So, what they do is they give you what's called the trial penalty.
Yeah, they hit you hard because you want
to make it's like, how dare you challenge the government, And this is, you want to exercise your constitutional right to trial? Well, we're going to smash you for it. So that co-defendant gets 15 years, 1 month. My other co-defendant, who was my right-hand man, the kid that committed all the violence in the case, he copped out. He testified on me at my trial. He got 12.5 years, 12 years, 7 months. And my other right-hand man, who really hurt my feelings, man, he ended up with 7 years, and I treated this kid good. He was like my little, like my little cousin type of dude, man. And, he knew what he was involved in, and he blasted me, man. So, but.
That's crazy. So you got hit hard. You got hit the hardest because you went to trial. So from what I've read, you go to Youngstown, Ohio, right? Initially, that's the first place you go out after after your sentencing. Is that correct?
Well, as soon as I get sentenced, they send me to an immigration facility, right?
Okay.
I had been in this immigration facility up where I'm at. So they send me back there right after I get sentenced.
And that's for like holding, just to decide where you're going to go next, right?
Yeah, so they send me back there and they tell the cops, to lock me up, lock me up for the night, man. They don't know, keep their eye on me. They don't know if I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
But I went back there, man, and in front of them, I'm smiling. You would never know, even when I was in prison, that I had 40 years, bro, because unless I told you, I smile a lot. Pretty much, man, try to conduct myself like a pretty nice dude. But, at night when you're alone, that's when it hurts, man. That's when you spend time alone with yourself and you're like, wow, this is what it is. So I'm in Batavia for a few days and then they send me to Youngstown, Ohio.
Yeah. So you go to Youngstown, you kind of hang there for a little bit, and then you get your walking papers, where you're going to go, where the feds are going to send you. Mm-hmm. They send you initially for 3 days. You go to Atlanta, right? USP Atlanta, which, in its own right is from what I understand, a very tough facility. It's in the middle of the city. It's a bad place. I want you to tell me, and I want you to tell the audience. One of the things I remember from your book very early is that you got placed into a cell with an individual that had really horrific breath, right? I think you told that story. And I want you to tell me about that story. And then I want you to tell me about, you saw a message on the wall that said, "God save me," as you were leaving the facility.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. Tell me about your first brush with this diaper breath guy. I want to hear.
Yeah, they put me in a cell right now. I'm on my way to federal prison. I get to Atlanta. It's a holding facility. It's a rat hole, bro. There was a white dude that they stuck in a cell with 3 black dudes, and he ended up getting killed in there. They were putting 3-4 dudes in one cell because they had nowhere to put people back then. So anyway, I get lucky and go in a cell with a white dude, man. As soon as I see this dude, he looks like a homeless dude, bro. Missing teeth. And for real, man, his breath was like, it smelled like he ate a dirty diaper. And I was just like, damn, I don't even want this dude to talk to me. I'm not looking for conversation. I got a 40-year sentence. I go in there. I'm a pretty big kid. And I'm just like, man, I wish this dude would just,
shut the hell up.
Yeah, just shut up, man. And, dude, the clothes they give you, it's like rags, man. I mean, literally holes in the clothes, holes in the socks. Shirts are been washed so many times it looks like you got on your little sister's nightie. I mean, it's crazy, bro. Yeah, it's crazy. And yeah, and then, you go in that cell and, people write up, dude, the walls are filthy, man, from pencil lead and ink. And I read that, God save me. I just thought it was ironic to read something like that.
That had to hit you, right? This is real now. This is not, because I think a lot of people have this mysticism of like prison, and it's like, they watch like Goodfellas, or they'll see, some goofy TV show, and it's like, well, yeah, it looks bad, but is it really that bad? And you hear stories, well, it's not that bad. But then you realize, like, this is not like it's not a game. This isn't a TV show. I'm not leaving here until I'm old, right?
Yeah.
And you see that on the wall. It's almost haunting, really, isn't it? Like seeing something like that. It has to be freakish, really.
But it is. But you know what, man? It instantly makes you depressed.
Yeah.
All the dirt and the grime, you're instantly like, damn, you start thinking about your mother, your grandmother, how nice your grandmother's house looked when you were growing up. And now you're living in this environment, man. And you're like, this is it, man. This is what my life is. So and honestly, excuse me.
Yeah. So you get you leave Atlanta, you're there a couple of days, and they finally figure out where they're going to send you. Now, I want to kind of, we've talked about this in certain episodes, just kind of how the federal prison system works. And this well. There are certain levels of Fed systems. There's, the camps that are like, going to camp for something when you're a kid. And then you go all the way up to an ADX Supermax facility. And there's a bunch of stuff in the middle. Yeah. You go, your first, if I'm wrong, tell me, but your first facility that they send you to, which it seemed, why did they send you to Big Sandy? Because Big Sandy is one of the worst federal prisons in America. And as far as I know, you had no federal convictions. Did they go by your state convictions, or seems a bit harsh to send you there, right?
Well, what they do is, man, they score you based on
points, right? Yeah.
Yeah, on a point system. But when you're young, okay, they got a form in there, and on the form it said I was a leader of a drug organization.
I see.
Violence. There was a dude lit on fire in my case by the co-defendant who got 12 and a half years, although he lit people on fire. But honestly, bro, I was designated to Otisville. But when I got to Brooklyn, they had just had an incident in Big Sandy. So what they did was they started shipping all kinds of people out and just throwing us in them beds, right? even with a 40-year sentence, I was designated to Otisville, which was crazy, but that would have worked out great. So I get redesignated while I'm in Brooklyn, and I was up there with that Charlie Corsiniglia, Silent Dom. I was actually his cellie too, for about 5 or 6 days. He had an issue with one of his cellies, and then he ended up getting a Latin King cellie.
So you were at MDC for a few days. That's a pretty tough place to begin with. But so they either were going to send you to Otisville or Big Sandy, which are, from what I understand, much different. So you go to Big Sandy, which is in Kentucky. It's in the middle of fucking nowhere. It's one of the worst and most high security prisons in America. I have to ask, so they take you in on a bus, I'm guessing? Is that how you get there?
Yeah, I drive all the way on a bus to Big Sandy from MDC Brooklyn. Can you believe that?
Jesus.
I could not believe it, bro. And I'm black boxed. I don't know if your guests know what a black box is.
What is that? Tell us what that is.
So, a lot of guys just get cuffed to their waist. But once they put them cuffs on you, they put these black boxes on you where you can't move, man. Even if you had to itch your hand or whatever, you can't do nothing. And you're like this. You can't open up your little lunch that they give you. One bologna sandwich, one cheese sandwich. You can't do anything. So when that black box is on you, man, it's bad, man. Cuts your circulation off. Sometimes they tighten, and I got big wrists. Sometimes they tighten on your wrist, man, where the pain, dude, I'm telling you, one of the most unbearable pains you'll ever have in your life. And I was black box for a 10, 11-hour drive, man. I couldn't believe it, man.
According to the book, I want to get to a passage in the book, and I really urge, go read this. It's very compelling, and we'll talk about it at the end. You say to the bus driver, "Why did you put this black box on me? This shit's too tight, man." I say respectfully as I can under the circumstances. "Shut the fuck up and get on the bus, you dumb son of a bitch." He leaves out of as he degrades me. That's what the guard says to you.
Yeah.
And you get on the bus and you go to Big Sandy, and you get to Big Sandy and you walk in and you realize that you're in possibly, and you had probably heard about Big Sandy and what it was and where it was. And this wasn't fucking club fed like a lot of people say the Fed system is.
Yeah.
I guess tell me about the first day you were in prison. What was it like? Tell me about, did they search every crevice of your body? What was that like? Did you go in a single cell? Were you in a pod? What was that like?
So I get to Big Sandy. When I get there, initially they strip you, make you take your clothes off, bend over, spread your ass cheeks. That's one of the most humiliating things in the world for, people that never experienced that. I despise that, bro. I was always a dude that had a lot of pride. So I despise that right off the rip, man. But anyway, I go to the housing
Chad,
unit.
let me ask you real quick. Let's say you say, "No, I'm not doing that." What happens?
Oh, well, I mean.
You get a nightstick in the stomach?
No, they're not. It's not like New York State prison. They don't got nightsticks, but they'll beat the shit out of you, take you to the hole, and they will strip frisk you. And back then, they used to 4-point people. I don't know if you know what that is. But they would 4-point people where they would cuff your left hand to the left side of a bed, right hand to a right side of the bed, and same thing with your ankles, left and right. And they just leave you there, dude. You got to piss on yourself, shit on yourself. That's what a 4-point cell is. And back then, they'd 4-point you without a problem.
So they do that sort of thing, and so they check you in. You basically get your clothes. What did you wear? You wear you didn't wear orange or anything, right? You wear a suit, like a brown suit, right?
Well, right the first day you get there, they give you these stretch pants. They call it a monkey suit, a raggedy ass t-shirt like the thing from Atlanta. These Jackie Chan shoes, these little slip-on blue shoes that like your great grandfather used to wear.
Right.
And you get those, and that's what you get until the next day when you go to laundry. Some prisons, you get there on a Friday, dude. You don't even have a change of underwear until Monday. And don't let it be Martin Luther King weekend, because on Monday you don't get any clothes either. I've been sent to prisons like that where I didn't have a change of clothes for 4 or 5 days. But
why is that? They just take all the clothes?
Well, no, you just got what you come in on the bus.
Right, because they're not there Monday. Is that?
Yeah, so Monday they're not there because it's a holiday.
Right.
Martin Luther King holiday.
Gotcha.
So now you're hit, man. And I've been transferred, dude, believe it or not, 3 times on Martin Luther King holiday. So I've been screwed 3 times by the system. But anyway, when you get to Big Sandy, they won't give you new clothes. They say, if you're still here in 30 days, come back, and we'll give you a brand new set of clothing. Like khakis. They're not going to give them to you right away. Most people don't make it. Dude, I went to that prison probably with 30 dudes on that bus, and I'd say 18 of us went to the yard. 12 people probably checked in or couldn't make it. And by the time, I don't know, within 3 months, out of the 18, dude, I could say maybe 6 of us were still there.
So you're basically saying to the layperson that out of 30 people that you went, and think of it almost like boot camp, let's say. So you go, 30 people are there, some don't make it and they leave, and it's that terrible and that brutal that how many people you said were left? Six.
Probably about 6 of us after 90 days.
So, and that basically means they couldn't hack it and they checked into PC, which is, basically rat camp, basically for everyone that doesn't know. And they couldn't handle the prison. It was that bad. Tell me about the day. So the first, do you go to a pod? Do you go to a cell? What was that like?
Okay, so we walk into the pod. As soon as I walk in, man, all you hear is like yelling, screaming, and they got these lights, dude, that just pierce your eyes. As soon as you walk in, dude, you can smell weed, cigarettes. People are getting high. People are just,
So they
like,
don't care as long as you're just not causing any problems.
yeah. I mean, that the cops in there are scared, bro. Between me and you, a lot of them cops are scared, right? So they would rather, let you do what you want to do, so that they could be safe. They're like, as long as you ain't, I guess raping, robbing,
Killing
and killing.
people, yeah.
But that shit's still happening, man. Them dudes are just trying to make it out, dude. It's dangerous for them, and it's dangerous for us.
Yeah, because you think about it. I mean, I don't know what the BOP pays them, but it's probably less than a cop makes. It's not a ton of money. They're not going to get stabbed for some inmate, I guess. So you walk in. Do you have a cellie? How's that work?
So when I go in there, the white dudes approach me right away, and they're like, "Hey, man, what car are you in?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "You run with the whites or you run with the blacks? What do you do?" And I said, "Man, I'm white, man. I already knew what time it was." And they started, "We're gonna find a cell for you, man. We got this dude over here who almost started a race riot, or you can go in with this old man, Mr. Young." So I'm like, pretty much, I weigh the options and we talk a little bit. So I'm gonna go with the old man. They're like, "Well, he goes to sleep early, whatever." So I'm like, "Cool, I need to go to sleep anyway, man. I've been on this trip for days." I get in that cell that night with Mr. Young, and dude, that dude wouldn't shut up. He would talk my ear off, man. I fell asleep with him talking to me. But he was like the town crier at the prison. He knew everybody's business.
Now, how long do you know offhand how long he was there?
He had a 15-year sentence. He had been there for a few years, man, and he had been through a lot of shit.
Seems like
seen a lot of bad things.
And again, I guess when you're in prison, even the smallest of things bring you joy. You'd have to feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, but when you got placed with him, maybe you almost felt like, wow, this is kind of lucky. I get this guy. I could have got the worst inmate in here, and I get him. Had to be pretty much a win for you, no?
Yeah, I felt that way. My grandmother used to have all this like country kitchen stuff when I was a kid growing up. Yeah. And when I go in this dude's cell, he's got a country kitchen calendar hanging on his wall. He's got like homemade shelves. You could eat off the floor, dude. He used to wax his floor every day. So yeah, man, I know this is crazy to say, and your viewers might be like, "What?" Dude, it was like home sweet home, because this was my home now. And it was nice to be in a place that was clean. Finally the noise had stopped, the doors were locked. And yeah, man, it's crazy to say, but it was kind of like refreshing.
Yeah, it almost seems like that's kind of, if you're going to go to Big Sandy, that's probably the inmate you want as your cellie, frankly. So you talk to me about, you said you were approached. When does that happen? Is that right away? They come up to you and say, "Hey, who are you? Why are you here? Who do you run with?" So let me ask you. So let's say you said, "Hey, I run with the blacks." Now, I do want to make this very clear before we do anything. Chad is talking strictly in prison terms. Okay, this is not in real life, but this is how things work in prison. You identify with your race, that. So do they try to get you to join? Like, I've seen Shot Caller, that movie. I'm sure you've seen that. They kind of go up and say, "Hey, who are you? What are you doing?" Is that what they do to you? They basically say,
Oh yeah. Anytime you walk into a maximum security prison, I don't care if you're a Mexican, I don't care if you're black, white, people are going to come up to you, man. Like, "Yo, who are you? Where are you from? Who do you run with?" Because there are, it's gang filled, and people want to know who their enemies are. And some dudes mess up. Some dudes will walk on a yard that they ain't supposed to be on. So
what would happen in that situation?
Oh, they would smash you immediately. Like I seen I seen the TS dudes, man, just demolish these Pisces, man, one time.
TS, what is that?
Hold on. Huh?
What is TS?
Texas Syndicate.
Okay.
So, when you walk in there, yeah, they want to know right away. And back to your question about, hey, if I say I want to run with the blacks, let me tell you about that, right? I'm from New York. So if I say, hey, I want to run with the blacks, the white dudes are like, okay. But if there's ever a race riot, dude, and you're white and you run with the blacks, you're the first target, homie.
Right.
You are the first
Because
target.
you're kind of the not the mark, but you are like they
Yeah,
don't really they just kind of say, I almost kind of look at it weirdly enough as like you're kind of the sacrificial lamb, if you will.
yeah, and they call dudes like that gray. They're like, oh, that dude's gray. You know what I mean? But and a lot of times, dude, a lot of black dudes don't want you in their car anyway. You know what I mean?
Makes
You
sense.
got you got some racist dudes, man, from all races, blacks, Hispanics, whites. So, man, some of them black dudes wouldn't want you in their car anyway. You know what I mean?
What kind of other groups were in there? Obviously you mentioned some of the white groups. Obviously there's Muslims, there's DC blacks, all these different groups. But like, what kind of other groups were there in that prison? Were
When I
there
was
was
there,
was
we
there a,
had
was there an Italian group?
oh yeah, Vic Amuso was there when I first went there.
Tell me about that
Um,
group. No,
the kid Alley Boy was there too. Alley
little
Boy was
Alley
there.
Boy Persico. Yeah, we've
Yeah.
talked about him, his father. Yeah, Carmine, his father. Yeah. So tell me about them. Like, do they don't live in their own wing like Goodfellas, right?
No, it's nothing like that. Um,
Do they
when
have
I was in,
respect? A lot of respect.
well, they don't bother nobody. You know what I mean? And
Okay.
you might find this mind boggling, but dude, the New York blacks like semi look out for the Italian dudes from New York, right? They're from New York.
Regional.
It's not like they run with them, but they look out for them. Like,
Hmm.
yo, dudes from New York, bro. In every prison I've been to,
I
like
see.
Alley Boy was real good friends with this kid, Victor Lorenzano, Puerto Rican kid, got 87 years out of New York. They were doing a bunch of home invasions with the Albanians. So Alley Boy and Vic were real close. You know what I mean? If something happened to Alley Boy, Vic would get involved, and
I
if Vic
see.
got involved, then the blacks would get involved. They had like a Hispanic New York car and a black New York car, but they like ran together. You know what I mean?
I understand.
Some of the New York dudes actually ran with them dudes, bro.
Now let me ask you: is that a way you could identify as well? It seems a bit regional, like where, you know, even if you're not black or white or whatever, you almost have a respect because, like, hey, he's kind of one of us. We're all from the same area. Is that more? That's not more important than race, is it?
It depends, man.
Like
I
let's
mean,
say let me ask you this. Let's say like let's say the Italian guys get into it with a white gang or something.
oh, the New York dudes would help them
They would. Okay.
everywhere I've been.
Interesting. All right. So let me kind of stay on that. So you mentioned, and I don't know if this was at Big Sandy, you could tell me. You said you've had run-ins with Steven Caracappa, who we've talked about on our show. We did an episode on him and his partner, Louis Ippolito, who were the mafia cops. And I think I've heard you say one point that the Italians did not congregate with him. Is that true?
That is true. When I ran into him at Coleman too, man.
Which is in
Um,
Florida, right?
yeah, Coleman too is a dropout gang member yard. They got snitches there, dropout gang members. Steve Caracappa was in, I want to say Victorville first, and one of the homies from Boston had the Aryan Brotherhood car over there, and he let Steve leave. And Steve was my celly for like 4 or 5 days, right? So when Steve Caracappa comes to Coleman, Baldo, Baldo said, "Look, here, this is a package for you, just out of respect. I'm going to give you this package." Vic Amuso was in Coleman too at the time too, so he gives him a package and pretty much tells him, "Look, dude, we're never going to talk again. I'm doing this for you off the strength. I think because of his father or whatever, and he did it. And then he's like, look, we're never going to talk." And Vic kind of stayed away from him too, and I was there when dude, slapped Vic on the baseball field. We'd talk about that later if you want, but yeah, they pretty much stayed away from Caracappa, and you know how we talked briefly before about Arizona, right?
Yeah, which I want to get into in a little. I just kind of wanted to kind of relate it to the
Well,
mob talk.
Ippolito was there too, man.
Okay, and we're talking about Baldo Amato, who is from the Bonanno crime family,
Yeah.
messed around with Carmen Galante, a couple others. Fascinating. So tell me more about Big Sandy. So you get in there, you kind of identify, and you say what do you say? What did you say? I
Tell him I'm white, man. I run with the whites.
run with the white. So do they try to recruit you at that point and say, hey, you're part of our group, you want to get in with what we're doing? How does
Well,
that
there's a
go?
dude there named Adam Oliveri. He's from New York too, and man, I can't remember what his co-defendant's name was, but they killed a dude in the bar. He was a 22, 23-year-old kid, trying to do whatever he wanted. Thought he was in the mob or whatever. I don't know the whole story, but they come up to me right away, dude. They already know where I'm from the next morning. He's like, "Yo, what's up, man? You got to do this, do that. Got to have your paperwork. You're from New York. What's up?" You got 40 years. You're a big kid. And, you know, they just, dude, yeah, man, there's the press game, homie. They got the press game.
And what are you thinking at that point? You're thinking, are
thinking,
you willing to say, you know what, I'm in. I just want to be. You know, do you want to be protected? Do you want to in your head stay by yourself? Did you want that brotherhood? Did you want people to be like? How does that work? Like, if I'm you, I want to just kind of do my time and stay to myself. But
yeah, but it don't work that way, man. I thought I wanted to stay by myself, just do me, and try to fight my case and get out of prison.
But you realize that lone wolf shit isn't going to work, right?
Oh, 100%. And let me tell you something. Honestly, the homies at that time from the East Coast, I don't give. Yo, if you're white and you're from the East Coast, bro, they're like, yo, you're with us, and if you're not, well, we're gonna smash you pretty much. You're getting smashed, bro.
Yeah, or you're just gonna say, I can't handle this and I'm gonna leave, and you're gonna check in. That's your option, right? You don't have any other option.
Yeah, but if you do that, you go to the next prison, it's the same story.
It's like a domino effect. Yeah.
Yeah,
everybody
you can't make it nowhere. And the BOP, federal prison system, is a small place. Somebody will see you, brother. So I mean, it's like you and I'm like, yeah, all right. And then it does become a brotherhood, man. You're like, this is my family away from my family, man. Like, I cared about them dudes. There's dudes that I really cared about, man, that were in the car. Eventually, I didn't care for them at the end, but, you know, there's some dudes that I still care about, man, because all we had was each other. And let me tell you something. People can say what they want to say. Big Sandy was the most dangerous, violent federal prison in the country. Maybe the most violent prison in the country altogether. Although in California, they got some serious stuff going on over there. New York's pretty tough. Chicago, Illinois. But let me tell you something, dude. That prison, dude, it was balls to the wall there, man. People were dying there. People were getting stabbed there on a daily basis.
Tell me about the first really bad thing you saw there.
The first really bad thing. First thing was, I think it was the thing with the kid, Creeper. That might have been the first bad. I talk about it in the book. Creeper, this little Serrano kid, man. The Mexican Mafia runs the Serranos. Dude, they destroyed this dude out there, man. Like, beat this dude to death, man. Knocked him out, woke him up, stabbed him, knocked him out. We woke back up. Dude, all you seen was blood everywhere. And I talk about that in the book when they're shooting and I lay on the ground and, you know, I'm looking up at the clouds and I feel like God's looking at me, laughing at me. That was probably the first, like, that I personally seen. My first day there, I was in the hallway, dude, and they had smashed this white dude. I seen him come by in a stretcher, and then I see some of the homies that I don't know are the homies until I get to the yard and they get out of the hole, which was a couple kids from Boston. They smashed this dude, bro. He was trying to press a white dude, man, and pretty much booty bandit, rape him type shit. And if you're white and you're doing that, dude, in the pen, it's not flying, bro. You're out of here.
And this is all like very, very quick into your time there. This wasn't like years later. This was early.
First day. That was the first day.
I want to say this too. I don't think this is going to be the only time we have Chad on our show. We want to talk to him. There's so many stories we can get into. We don't have hours on end to sit here and talk about every single thing. But one thing I do want to ask you about, and we'll get into some of your experiences at other places, but tell me about the food there. How was that?
Okay, so when I first get there, you know, I'm coming from a county jail, bro, and from a CCA where they feed you rice and beans every day. When you first get there, man, you smell the food. It smells good, man. Really? Back then, they were like, hey, how do you want your eggs? The food was good. Really? But I watched the food within 3 years become slop, dude.
Why is that?
I know at Big Sandy that the food administrator was $180,000 over his budget at one time.
I got you.
I think they ended up firing him or demoted him, whatever. But
so the government was running out of money and they couldn't feed people properly. Is that what happened?
That's exactly what happened, dude. And then they started taking the salad bar away at night. And then they started giving out, you know, 1 scoop of rice. And then the meat became pink slime. Dude, I quit eating any type of ground beef except for, you know, I ate roast beef. That's it.
Yeah, because
I wouldn't eat nothing else, man.
You didn't know what it was, right?
And now, I don't eat fish either, bro. So it was rough for me.
When you were arrested and indicted and everything, I know the feds. I know when my friend got arrested, they took a lot of pretty much everything he had, and you would know this better than anyone. You get through prison with money, right? You can buy things, and it definitely helps. Were you able to buy stuff that you needed, commissary and things like? Because the commissary list is quite good, right? I mean, you can get what do you want?
Yeah, I mean, for prison standards, it's good.
Yeah,
But
that's what I mean, right?
after you've been eating, bagged chicken for 10 years, you're like, man, this shit sucks.
But you get tired after a while of eating like Twinkies and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
And they sell bagged chicken, but like I said, I don't eat no seafood. So, that was rough for me. I ate summer sausages, pepperoni. We'd make pasta. I had a little money left still. I would buy stuff from the staff kitchen. I made money doing legal work. I mean, I ate some good stuff in there. I'm not going to say that I didn't because, I had a little bit of juice. I had some power in some of the prisons that I was in. So I was able to, my boy worked in the staff kitchen. So I ate some good stuff, bro.
Yeah, I want to talk about you're obviously you're kind of realizing that you have to stop screwing around and maybe you could try to get out of prison. I want to talk about that. But before we do that, we obviously talk about the Mafia on this show and the Irish and things like that. And it's interesting because today we were recording it. It's June 22nd. And I'm sure you don't know this, maybe you do, but 10 years ago today, Whitey Bulger was arrested in Santa Monica, California. Today, 10 years ago. And you've actually had some run-ins with Whitey Bulger inside of Tucson in Arizona. So eventually you leave Big Sandy and you went to multiple prisons. You went to Coleman, you went to Tucson, you went to all these different places. You actually, when you left prison, you were in Lexington in Kentucky, right?
Yeah.
So you go to Tucson, and it's important to realize Tucson, as I'm sure you'll allude to, is one half child molesters and rats, and the other side is just regular people. And there are times where you don't necessarily touch each other, but you can speak through gates and things like that, right? So
I want to clarify that though for your viewers, right? Yeah. So they know. Tucson was a very dangerous prison. It was a rockin' prison. And what they did was they started off with one unit and they fenced it off. And that's where they were putting the child molesters. They weren't allowed to go to the rec yard. They had a little rec space in front of their building. And then what they did was they ended up making that whole depending on where you're at, the whole right side, all child molesters. And they started moving people out. So now the child molesters would go to the baseball field and we could go to the track field. And you can talk to them through the fence. You know what I mean? And they had dudes over there that you'd be like, wow, people that cooperated and child molesters. That one dude that, kidnapped that little blonde girl, he was there from Utah.
John Benet Ramsey or?
No, the little
I know Elizabeth Smart.
Elizabeth Smart. Yeah, that dude was there, bro. One of my boys tricked him and had him come to the fence, dude, and shitted him down. I don't know if your viewers know what that is, but he pissed in a squirt bottle and shit in it, and he was talking to the dude for a couple weeks. And then I shouldn't laugh about this, but he got him to come to the fence. He said, "Hey man, I got this for you," and he sprayed him. And the dude was like, pop, 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 pop. He sprayed him in the face. He couldn't breathe. And it was just, wow. I don't know, dude. I was out there when it happened.
So you shitted on the guy that kidnapped Elizabeth Smart.
I didn't know, but one of my buddies did.
Yeah. Your guy did. You were near it. You saw it.
Yeah. So listen.
But it was funny to you. That was funny, right?
Honestly, yeah. The dude was a scumbag.
Yeah, he deserved it. Fuck
yeah, deserved more than that.
So tell me about Whitey Bulger, because that's pretty incredible. I mean, Whitey's a notorious individual.
Yeah, so I'm Irish, right? I'm Irish and German. My dad's Irish and German. My mother's Irish. I always knew who Whitey Bulger was, so, and some of your viewers might not like me saying this, but to a certain extent, dude, I'm not fascinated by people in prison. I'm like, so what? But for some reason, I was fascinated by Whitey Bulger. I was not on the yard side with him, right? He gets stabbed by a Boston dude that's over there that's a check-in. Dude stabs him with a pencil. Whitey goes to the hole. I'm already in the hole under a K2 investigation. So they put him in the cell, 2 cells away from me, but he's cell alone, rec alone. That means he can't have a cellie. He can't go in a rec cage with anybody. So at this time, they allege that I'm a dropout gang member, right? I'm not going to get into what gang and all that stuff, but they allege that. So now I'm in the rec cage next to Whitey Bulger, right? And I'm like, hey, what's up? I start talking to the dude, and I just want to know stuff about him because I'm curious. And, I am a little okay, fascinated. And he just told me all kinds of stories, dude. I didn't know the dude was in Alcatraz. I had talked to him about. He told me to shut up one time too, man. I just laughed at him,
Wow.
Yeah, because
did he tell you that just because you were talking too much, or?
Yeah, because he was trying to talk, and I talked over him. You know how your grandfather might hey,
shut up,
be quiet, kid. Yeah, he told me, hey, shut the fuck up for a minute. I'm trying to tell you a story.
Wow.
And he loved to tell stories, but let me tell you something that your viewers don't know. So 10 years ago when he gets arrested, you see him walking and everything. Dude, when he was in Tucson after he was stabbed, dude, he looked like an old, decrepit man. He was old, bro.
Yeah, he was, sure.
But you could see the death in his eyes. And when I say that, bro, I mean that. And the stories that he would tell, and he would tell me like, he said, listen, man, I was hiding. He said, all this shit's bullshit, like this Conley FBI agent.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I couldn't come out, man. I couldn't come out and kill these people. The guy that was writing about him in the Boston Globe,
Howie Carr, yeah.
He used to get furious about that dude when he would talk about him, right?
Hated him.
He said, man, I couldn't come out and kill this fucking guy. He said, if I could have, I would have ate his fingers off.
Well, I think at one point, and we talked about this, they were very close to killing Howie Carr, but they weren't able to make it happen. It was just, it didn't work out. And a real quick story about Howie Carr. I don't know if you know this, but when Whitey was killed, allegedly by who he was killed by, Howie Carr actually sent that guy $100 in his commissary. It's a story. He talked about it. They hated each other. So the fact that you bring that up is interesting.
Yeah. So he talked about that, told me about Alcatraz, and I asked him, because back then, dude, I used to fascinate, man, with the fact that I thought I could somehow escape from prison, dude. I thought that I was going to be able to do it,
Really?
And I had asked him about that stuff, and I was like, how did you not ever get caught? He said, you never go out at night. He said, the police don't pull you over during the day. He said, you get pulled over at night.
I've heard you say that, and I've thought about that, and I think of all the times I've gotten pulled over, and it was always at night. That's a fascinating thing to think about, actually.
I can say this, man, about Whitey, dude, honestly. People say he was a child molester, he told all that shit. But, dude, the dude was a very intelligent dude, man, when you talk to him.
Yeah.
And you could, honestly, dude, you see it in his, and you know what? I did see it. I seen it in Steve Caracappa, bro. I didn't see it in Ippolito. Ippolito was there, too, and he was on that same side with Whitey, just so you know. I seen it in his eyes, man. You could see death in this dude's eyes, like, and when he got angry and he would talk about that dude, I don't remember what his name was, you said. But dude, dude, you could see like fire in his eyes, like he would kill him in a minute.
I think that's why, like when I hear you talk about this, like that's how Bulger was, according to most people. He was a deranged, demented human being. So that doesn't surprise me. Wow, fascinating. So you were that close. Wow. And it's interesting that he was willingly telling you this stuff. That's pretty incredible. I guess he just kind of was done. He had given up and he was going away quickly on his untimely death. You would agree that was quite an interesting decision to send him to Hazleton, right?
Oh, 100%. And I'm sure a lot of people got flack. They knew he was going to die. You can't send that dude out there, man. Dude, and some people try, like you get chomos. We had a chomo on the yard in Big Sandy. These Donnie Fontaine from Boston. Dude was the chief of police, man, and Donnie kicked his head off. And Donnie was almost out, almost had 25 years, and he ended up killing a child molester in Atlanta, and now he's got life, dude. He had like 23 years and then blew it, dude. He had like 2 years left.
Wow.
But there is one more thing. Whoever that chick was that got arrested with Whitey Bulger, his girl,
Catherine,
he told me, he said, Chad, listen, I'm not going to live much longer. He told me that. I'm not going to say we got cool, bro, but there was a mutual understanding where we talked. You know what I mean? Through the fence. I was never like face to face with him where I could touch him. Always through a gate. But he told me the only thing that bothered him, and dude, you would think that this cold-hearted dude, nothing could hurt his feelings, was the girl, man, the broad that got arrested with him.
Catherine Gregg, yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember their names, but he said that's the only thing that he regrets. He said, I'm never going to get to hug my girl again, man. He said, I spent all that time with her, and I'll never get to hug her again.
The one thing about him that I've read is that he was very much cold, but he loved her to death. And he actually, when he was arrested, he said, look, I'll tell you whatever you need to know. Just let her go. He really genuinely cared about Catherine Gregg. And she actually recently was released from prison. I believe she lives in South Boston somewhere. But she was a ride or die, man. She never said a one word about him. She took the 8 years, and that was that. And, that doesn't surprise me. And you also alluded to that Whitey was in really bad shape. So like sending him to a prison of that stature, like that's kind of like sending him to Big Sandy, right? Hazleton's a tough place as well.
Yeah, Hazleton's rocking, bro.
And then to throw him just in normal general population is, in a way, is pretty wild.
See, when you go in there, man, they ask you, they're like, hey, you got any problems? You think you can make it on the yard? They let you answer the questions. And I'm sure Whitey, being arrogant, man, he's probably like, yeah, I can make it anywhere. Yeah. It's just the type of dude that he was.
And he was literally killed hours later.
Dude, they knew he didn't even make it 12 hours. They knew. Yeah. They got him in the blind spot. They killed him in the back. I know exactly where they killed him, dude. They killed him in the back of the unit. No camera can see that little cut in. Yeah, they rolled him out in his wheelchair and they killed him.
Just incredible. One final question, then I want to get into your kind of getting out and how that all happened. You mentioned an individual, I think just recently, the 23 years guy that did all this time and he was about to get out and he did something to make him stay there longer.
Yeah.
That is something that I feel like would be the most terrifying, where you have a release date, right? And you have hope. And you would probably agree that that's the only thing you have is hope, right? I'm going to get out someday. I've got a number that, even though it's 2038 or whenever it is, I'm going to get out and I'm going to have maybe my golden years and I can meet another older person and we can have a life. Were you ever worried that things you were doing, and if you don't want to talk about it, that's fine, but did you ever worry about that? We're like, hey, I can't do something, but I have to kind of do it, but I don't want to do it because I don't want to get more time.
I can say this and probably speak for a lot of people, man. In the heat of the moment, man, when something happens in prison, it's like, yeah, you always got that in the back of your mind where you want to get out, but man, you want to live now, right? So
yeah,
sometimes, in those places, you got to handle business, man. And if handling business means someone dies, then they die, man. And I hate to say it like that, but that's the mentality of 90% of the dudes in there that are doing big numbers, man. Like I gotta make sure I'm here today. And there's dudes I've been in prison with that I'm sure, like Donnie, man. I'm sure he regrets it now. He could have been free. Mm-hmm. But, he was an armed gang member, Aryan Resistance Militia. And, they ran into a chomo and there wasn't a gate in between them. So they handled their business.
And when you say chomo, you mean, child molester, which
that's what they call
probably chomo. Deserved it, right? But okay. So obviously I'm sure a lot of people are listening and they're saying, well, this guy got 40 years. It's nowhere near 2038 or whatever that number is. How is he here today? So, right, you decided at some point, basically 7-8 years into this, you're saying to yourself, okay, well, things are changing in America. Maybe some point, if I just go to a law library and I sit there and spend my time productive instead of messing around with this and messing around with that, maybe I can try to see something in my case and get myself out of here. So you go to the law library, you eventually get a college degree in jail. You eventually get out of Big Sandy and you go to a more lower security facility. Is that when you decided that, hey, I'm going to start changing my life when you got moved? Is that kind of when it started?
When I left Big Sandy, I went to USP Lee, right? And I was there for a while. And then I eventually started thinking, like, there was this black dude, man, from North Carolina told me, hey, man, you want to be that dude with the, necklace on in prison, the white G-Shock, brand new sneakers. He said, I see you flossing, man. You got a lot of power around here. He said, but when they bring back parole, what are you going to tell them, man? That you were the heroin dealer at USP Lee, that you were selling dope, that you were stabbing people. And I'm like, man, I'm brushing him off. He's like, come to this Leaders Breed Leaders thing that I'm teaching. So I go to it. The dude's name's Cedric Dean. He's out of North Carolina. I go to that program, man, and I listen. And then the warden has him teach it to the prisoners and the staff. And that's when, dude was like, oh, man, you need to change your life, bro. I see potential in you, homie. And I was like, yeah, man. And it was kind of like half-ass. And then eventually when I made it to FCI, I'm on the bus with that dude again a couple years later, right? He's like, what's up, man? You change your life? They're going to be bringing parole back. And I'm like, nah, not really. But I made it to an FCI, so I guess I'm doing better. Mm-hmm. And that's when I really, really got on it, bro. Yeah, and I had always been in the law library fighting my case. So, your viewers probably want to know, how did I get out? Well, Donald Trump.
Did you actually believe that you could actually get out? Did you ever actually believe that?
If I didn't believe it, no one else will, right?
Yeah.
I always believed, man. There were some days where I was hurt, but I always believed I was going to get out, man, somehow, man. That was my hope. Dude, I didn't want to get out when I was 60. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
If I got out when I was 60, dude, it was going to be bad news, man, for a lot of people. I mean, I'm just going to be honest with you.
Really?
Yeah, honestly. I was so bitter. I got a tattoo on my side. My whole side's blasted out. It says, beware the fury of a patient man. And I meant every bit of it.
Can you elaborate on that? What do you mean by that?
What by
like what would you have done?
Well, that's not something I really want.
Well, I get you're not going to say, but you had thoughts of you were just bitter. You wanted to get back at all the years that you lost. I get it. I get what you're saying.
Your anger, man.
Sure.
You hate people. You feel
makes
like
sense.
I deserve to go to prison, man. 100%.
Yeah.
But I didn't deserve 40 years, man. At the age of 24, man.
I think anyone
to take my whole life, man.
I think anyone listening will agree with that. So you go to the law library, and so you would agree that the federal system does do an okay job of trying to teach people that they're going to get out eventually, and maybe you can turn your life around, right? So they
I
have
don't
these
necessarily,
classes.
I don't agree with that the BOP or federal prison wants you to do good because they don't. It's about you, man. If you want to do good, I paid for my own college education. If you want to do good, there's opportunities there, man. You know what I mean? But no one really cares about you, dude. Education programs are mostly bullshit. That's why I wrote my own programs. Cedric Dean wrote his own programs. Breeders Breed Leaders, Alternative Violence Project seminars. Those were the real programs. And, you know, the way that I got out of prison, dude, I wrote the first compassionate release motion in the country to ever win. I spent years and years in the law library. I was obsessed with it. I'm a hustler, man. And I was going to work my ass off, man, to get out of prison. And I never gave up. I told people I do something every day to get out of prison. I don't care if it's writing a senator, if it's writing a motion, if it's doing a program. I do something every day to get out of prison, man, because it started to matter. When you get a little bit older, it starts to matter. You start, saying, hey, screw the gang stuff. I got stabbed in prison. I did something real bad, man, where they said the dude died. We were getting a death penalty, and I just changed my life, man. I didn't want to live like that no more. And eventually I was stabbed too. But, yeah, I just busted my ass. And then Donald Trump passed the first step back. So everything that Cedric Dean had told me, it finally happened. And I wrote a pro se motion to my judge. My judge responded, asked the government to open the case. He said, this is an extraordinary and compelling case, and it deserves an extraordinary remedy. Well, the light bulb goes off, man. All this compassionate release stuff these people want to talk about, it's because of my judge, man. My judge used those words first, and no one can ever tell me anything different. So my judge uses those words. I end up writing Judge Gleason, former federal judge John Gleason. Do you know who he is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so John Gleason says, you know what, Chad, I'm going to represent you for free. And they represent me, man. And he's Irish. My judge was Irish. I'm Irish. John Gleason steps in. If John Gleason doesn't step in, and this lady Lisa Jacoby from my city, who ran the Federal Defender's Office in my city, I wouldn't be on this Zoom meeting with you, bro. Because the government, man, dude, it was the worst response you would ever see, man. You know, they said things about me that weren't true. They said that I was a white supremacist. I was a white leader of a white gang in prison. They just, dude, they
try to paint you into something that you weren't at all.
Well, I can tell you this. You know, Judge Gleason dealt with Sammy the Bull Gravano and all that stuff.
Sure.
Let me tell you something. He said he had never in his life seen a response like that. He said it was the most brutal response he's ever seen. The prosecutor hated me, man. And he was the same prosecutor. He swore in the motion. The judge had to reprimand him in court like, dude, you're unprofessional. They brought a SIS guy in there to lie. The judge said that they manufactured evidence against me with the SIS. It was brutal, bro. It was
So
bad.
there were compelling reasons to reopen your case and give you a different sentence, right?
Yeah, so now if you prove there's extraordinary compelling reasons, then the judge can reduce your sentence. Well, I had a dude named Conrado Cantu. He was a cop. Met him in Lexington. He was actually the sheriff and I think the mayor in El Paso, Texas. And I said, look, dude, we can experiment on your case, but I think I'm right. And
so by this point, real quick, let me say, so by this point, you're helping other inmates get out of prison or get shorter sentences. Is that true?
Yeah, dude. By that point, I probably got 50 dudes out of jail.
No shit. Wow.
By that time.
Yeah, because I've heard through like different things that have been written about you, and this is what I found extraordinary about you. And I want to say this to anyone watching this right now. There are a lot of prison channels out there. There's one person that is doing what he's doing, and that's him. He is actively getting people out of prison, and he's doing things. He's not just sitting there telling you stories about this and that in some place in state prison somewhere. He lived it, and he's helping people. He's making a change to get people out. So you got, a lot of people out of prison, but you still were trying to get yourself out.
Yeah, and it was, hey, man, at times it was disheartening to watch me get dudes out. Like I got a major blood dude out on clemency. The same day he got clemency from Obama, I got denied. This dude had assault on staff, weapons, stabbed someone in prison. He got out and I didn't. I was like, damn. So that day, that hurt me that day, dude. I was messed up because they had called me over to speaker, right? And damn, I get a little emotional about it still, dude. They called me to come back to the unit team. So dude had just told me he got it. So I'm going back to the unit team. I'm like, damn, Obama's letting me out. And I'm from New York, bro. I'm from up here. So I was in Raybrook and my case manager liked me. And when I got up there, she just shook her head, She's like, they denied you. I'm sorry. Like that, the staff were sad for me. And dude, it even gets me teary-eyed now.
Yeah,
I was mentally and emotionally destroyed, and that was
you were ready to leave, and they said, nope, not gonna happen. When was this? When was that?
I want to say probably 5 or 6 days before Obama left office.
So it was 2016-ish.
2016, yeah.
Okay.
January.
So
So
you continue to battle, you continue to, and you think you're going home. Everybody knows it. Everyone's thinking it, and it doesn't happen.
yeah,
And I want you to really just quickly tell me. So how you're going to go home. You get all this happens.
yeah.
What is the do you just cry? Is that how it works? Like, do you just go into your room and you can't even deal with it anymore?
Yeah, dude, I hadn't cried, man, in years, man. After they
Yeah.
sentenced me, I think I cried that night, for my mother,
Sure.
for me. And it had been maybe 10 years. The next time I cried, my uncle told me my dog died. I had a dog, man. I loved him, man.
And when you were in
And
prison, he died.
yeah, my uncle had him all those years, bro. And then I think when that shit denied me, yeah, bro, I broke down, bro. I ain't gonna lie, I broke down, man. And then when Trump was elected that night, because I thought Hillary Clinton, #4 on her thing, was
Now, were
criminal
you
justice.
watching that on TV? Is that on TV in the prison?
Yeah, I watched that from my cell, dude, 2, 3 in the morning.
Well, can I ask what the reaction was when you heard about that? Was there like a roar? What did inmates say when that happened? Was there a
Well, when
how the
Trump,
fuck did that happen? Yeah.
yeah, people were just like, damn, we're fucked. And you know
Oh,
what?
was that what people said? Really?
Yeah, I did too. I started to cry on
Why
the
did you think that?
show.
You thought it'd be hard on inmates and stuff?
100%. But if it wasn't for Donald Trump, I wouldn't be here right now.
Wow.
He passed the First Step Act, dude.
Sure.
And he
So
opened the door.
so you could agree. So Donald Trump did do a lot of good. And I think if look, I'm not a personal fan of him, but I think you have to agree that there were things that Donald Trump did that were high level, and this was one of them. So you owe a lot of your life. Is that true? You owe a lot of your life to Donald Trump? Is that safe to say?
Now I owe my freedom to him because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here.
Man,
If he didn't pass
Republicans
the
need to
First
see
Step
this video because they'll pay you for this. They'll
Act.
pay you for that comment right there.
I got compassionate release, man. I proved that there was extraordinary, compelling reasons in my case, and that's how I was released. The judge said my rehabilitation, I had a college degree, over 100 programs, phenomenal jailhouse lawyer, no violence in 10 years. He said, look, these are the extraordinary, compelling reasons. First Step Back changed the stacking of 924C. It's no longer a second 25 years. Now it would be 5 and 5 and 5 and 5 if they
So
want
it
to
cuts it down.
Yeah, or it could be 7, 7, whatever, 7, 10.
So basically, instead of 40, you get 20 years, and you had pretty much did that. So
Well, yeah, I would have had 10 for the drugs, 5 for the first gun, 5 for the second, and that's what my judge did. He resentenced me to 20 years. He said that was an extraordinary, compelling reason on top of my rehabilitation, and he released me.
you
And
hear,
like I
you hear
said,
those words. So you hear those words.
yeah.
What do you think?
Oh,
What's the
man.
first thing you think about? Do you have
Dude.
jubilation? Do you believe it? Did you actually think it would happen? Because remember, you'd almost thought it would happen before. And how does that go? When did they release you? The next
Yeah,
day?
this is a crazy part that you probably don't know. First thing that popped in my mind, I was married to a nice Italian girl before I went to prison. Loved her with all my heart, bro. I got a 40-year sentence. She had to go on with her life. She was the
Really?
first thing I thought about. Like, I'm going to see her now. You know what I mean? And
Did you maintain contact with her at all? Or
no, she went on with her life. But you want to know the crazy part, dude? She was married for 12 years. I get out. She comes looking for me. She says, you know what? You're my real husband. I thought I'd never see you again.
oh shit! Wow, really?
So here's the banger for your guest, bro. She divorced her husband. Told her, he told him, look, I'm sorry, but I feel like my real husband's home. And I had told her, go back with your family, man. Forget about me. So now this is the other part for your guest, man. We're having twins, bro. I'm back with her, and she's due in January with twins. And
Wait, this is true. Like you're actually still really?
yeah, man. But I had
What
told
a
her,
beautiful story, man. That's
told her,
incredible.
Go back. So anyway, my judge releases me, and check out what the government. Remember I told you how nasty they were? June 5th, my family comes to get me in Kentucky, right?
This is 2020. This is last year.
Yeah, June 5th, last year. My family's there. I see him in the parking lot. The dude tells me, hey, you got clothes? I said, no, my family brought them. He said, damn, if you had clothes, I'd do you first. You know, they respected me, bro. I've been around a long time. I had a little clock. So they do me third. They're walking me to the gate, bro. I see my family. And I hear on the walkie-talkie, stop him. The government just appealed the case. Stop him immediately.
Oh my
Dude, I was
God.
literally 10 feet away from the gate, bro.
Oh my God.
They stopped me. They put me back in prison. They walked me back in there. They go put me in the quarantine unit. And they say, the government appealed your case. Judge Gleason, John Gleason's pissed off. He files some stuff with the Second Circuit and asks them to release me anyway. They say, no, we're going to stay it. So they stay the decision. 3
This
weeks
is the
later.
second time this happened. Basically.
Well, yeah. So now that was even worse than losing trial. I
Yeah.
was so close yet so far away.
Oh my God.
3 weeks later, which my anniversary will be on the 25th, The Second Circuit says, nope, we're not staying this no more. There's more than a reasonable probability that he's going to win this appeal. We're releasing him. They released me on June 25th, bro, 2020. The government was appealing my case, and they finally gave up, man, and I'm free now. I still have, parole, but I'm free, man.
So we're about to be at your anniversary, your 1 year anniversary.
The 25th, man. Yeah, I got a video I'm going to put out with
Salute to you, man.
Thank you, man.
That's so incredible. So I want to ask you about the day you leave, because this is always fascinating to me. You leave that day. What do you do first? Like, what's the first thing you do? You obviously you embrace your family. What do you eat? What did you eat?
That's the first thing I did, dude. I had seen this commercial for stuffed crust pizza from Pizza Hut.
Really? What is that true? Whoa! Wait a second. The first thing you ate was stuffed crust pizza from Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
Really?
Dude, wow. I wanted that pizza I want to know what a real pizza tasted like for, all these years. And I had always seen that commercial, and I was like, man, I'm going to get one of them someday. So that was the first thing that I ate, dude. And then after that, I think that night, I ate a steak dinner, salad.
Yeah.
But man, I wanted that pizza, bro. I ain't going to lie to you.
That's incredible. So tell me how many years you did in all. Was it how many?
I did 17 years, 5 months, and 21 days, man.
A long time, man. Wow. So you had pizza, you have a great time. So, and just to kind of end this on a high note. So you are with that woman still.
Yeah.
You're about to have children. You're living a life, and you're now doing a lot of good. And what I want to kind of end on is what you're doing now. So I want to tell everyone, I really urge you, go get this book. I mean that. I read a lot. This is a terrific book. It really is. The first 5 pages are fascinating, compelling as hell. But you're also doing a YouTube channel. You're doing some numbers there. And I always have said, I think you have one of the best YouTube channels because you truly have experiences that a lot of people don't. And that's called Blood on the Razor Wire. You have some really fascinating interviews. You just did an interview with a big Sandy guard. Is that correct? Is that what
he was a guard while I was there. So yeah, we did that interview.
Yeah, I'm gonna put all this stuff. I'm gonna throw this out there, and we're gonna have you back because I want to get a little bit more into some of the experiences you had. I want to talk a little bit more about Caracappa, and we've talked about all these guys, so it's kind of fascinating to hear about. But you're also doing some stuff with a website, Freedom Fighters and Prison Consultants. That's your company, is that correct?
Yeah, that's my company with my partner Lisa Jacoby. It's a paralegal and prison consultant firm. Like I said, dude, we've gotten 3 or 4 people out with life sentences. I won a case about 2 weeks ago. The dude had 54 years. The week before that, 43 years. We got over 100 people out of prison, man. Got a couple people out under clemency. We did their clemency packages. Jimmy Romans, my right-hand man, had life for marijuana. He's out. I did his stuff from prison, and he got out after I got out.
So you have to feel that you are and you've always said, and whenever I hear you talk, you talk about how your goal now is to help people change the course of their life, basically. And you also want to keep young people away from prison. And I love your channel because you talk about the food and you talk about that first day and you talk about every single day. You talked about at USP Lee when you saw an inmate basically be stabbed and you saw blood. It was black come out of his body. You talked about that. The stories. And I think someone like you and why I think you should be on my chat, what I'm doing and anywhere I go. And if it's a high level, I want to include you because I truly think you're one of the most important people we have in America right now because you've experienced this. You gave 17 years of your life to this country and not in the way I'm talking about. They took 17 years from you for nonsense, for a war that will never be won. You can't even call it a war because wars end. It's that simple. And you are, I truly mean this. I think you're an inspiration to anyone. And I know you deserve it. You said you should have been in prison. We can all agree with that. But now you're doing good. You're getting people out that shouldn't be in there. And you're trying to help. If you could just help one kid. You see all the kids on TV that get killed or kill people. It's got to feel terrible to see a 14-year-old, a 16-year-old go to jail for murder, isn't it? It's got to feel terrible.
It's horrible, man. And we've had the last 7 days, we've had a murder every day in my city, bro. So that is my mission with my YouTube channel. It's to save kids from life imprisonment and premature death in the streets. And, I'm putting some stuff together, man. Hopefully now that COVID's pretty much over, we're going to have a Save a Child month. We're going to go into the schools because,
you need to, man. In every school in America.
I don't care what color you are, man. I can only imagine what it's like for a 16-year-old to get a 25 to life sentence in New York or to be involved in a drug conspiracy at 18 and end up with a life sentence. I seen dudes in there, man, from the South, man. In the South, man, they'll give an 18-year-old a life sentence, bro, for a nonviolent drug crime. So that is the mission, man. We got an incarceration prevention program we're going to try to implement, where we're taking kids into morgues so they can see, the repercussions of their decisions, take them into courtrooms at sentencing. And then we're going to take them other places too, man, to let them know that, if you're selling drugs, you're a businessman. You're just in the wrong business. Why can't that be a hot dog cart? Why can't one hot dog cart turn into two, and two into four, and four into eight? Why can't you own, why can't you own a construction company? Why can't you, do these things? You can. You have it in you. You just got to believe in yourself. And like I said, I tell people all the time, if you don't believe it, no one else will. You have to believe it. You have to believe that you can do this.
Yeah, I think you're truly inspiring, man. I really feel like, anything I can do to help you. And if you're watching this, you're listening to our show, we get people that listen, go check out what Chad's doing. Maybe you have a child that's struggling, that, is going down the wrong path. I'll tell you a real quick story. I've never talked about this because I don't feel it's really in my place to talk about it, but I will talk about it. The guy I told you about, my best friend, he's got a son. He's got 3 sons. We went away. That kid was 10 years old. He's a good kid. He's a nice kid, fine individual, but he didn't have a dad anymore. You know what he did last year? 14 years old, killed somebody, allegedly. 14. He's the youngest person in this county to ever kill somebody, allegedly.
Damn.
That's exactly what we're talking about here, right? We're talking about people that have nothing, just the kid that you were. You had no people around you, no one to help you, no one to teach you right from wrong. And you had a mom who tried, but it wasn't enough. And you had to live it. And if you have a kid, sit down and talk to them, teach them that you only have one life. Luckily, I never did anything. And I can look back on my life and say, well, I'm glad I didn't do that. And I'm glad I didn't make the same mistakes you did. But you're truly an inspiration, man. I really hope you continue to do it. Anything I can do to help you, I want to. And I'm glad you were able to tell your story. Do me a favor. Tell us about your channel, what it's called, where you can find it. I want to get you on here again because your stories are really, really fascinating.
Well, I appreciate you. Blood on the Razor Wire TV, YouTube. We started about 2 months ago. I got a kid that's graduating on the 25th. He's 18. I said he was 16 the other day. He's my editor, man. I got a young fellow over there doing all the editing, man. He's part of the program. He's part of Blood on the Razor Wire TV. Devin Mitchell, good kid. But yeah, that's our mission, man, to save kids from life imprisonment and premature death. Do we talk about violence? Yeah, you know why? Because that's what brings the kids in. They want to hear that stuff. But then they get the message. It's not just about violence. And I say it's real and it's raw because it is. I'm giving it to you how it is. I want you to know what it's like to go to bed hungry at night, or what it's like, if someone has to call your mother and tell them, look, I'm sorry, your son was stabbed to death today in prison. I know he was only 20 years old, but he's dead. I mean, I want people to see that stuff because I think it does help change people. And, originally when I got out, I said, I'm going to go into the schools. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And COVID stopped all that. I couldn't do it. All these things I planned for the last 10 years, I couldn't do. And I seen these prison YouTube channels. I never watched one all the way through, but I seen this YouTube thing. I didn't know what the hell YouTube was. I was in prison, man. I really didn't. So when I seen it, I'm like, man, this would be the perfect platform. And that's what I did. I put the YouTube channel together. I got the Freedom Fighters Paralegal and Prison Consultant firm going. We're getting people out of prison. I just started a home improvement company where our goal is to hire felons that are getting out of prison. Because I know that dudes that done 7, 8 years, 10 years, 15 years, they really want to get out. Most of them dudes want to get out and do the right thing. They want to meet a nice girl. They want a job. And they're going to really come to work, man. So that's the next plan. We got the thing going. And that's what I'm doing, man. That's what I'm doing with my life. And I'm never going to stop doing this stuff. I love kids, man. Kids are, innocent victims, man. And unfortunately, they become a product of their environment. And if we can help change that, man, then I think it's our job. I owe more than going to prison, man, to my community.
Chad Marks, really incredible. They actually called you on one article I read about you, a high-profile jailhouse lawyer. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but that's what you were called by one website. A high-profile jailhouse lawyer. Let me ask you two quick questions before we go. Have you ever thought about becoming a lawyer?
I did, but man, I'm just going to be honest with you, man. My prosecutor was so vicious and, all the gang stuff and all that stuff that's in there. I don't think, man, I would get admitted, man. So for me, you
can get a lot of good out of what you're doing anyway, though, right?
Yeah, man. I love what I do, man.
We're gonna tag all this stuff. And I'm glad we did this because it's a little different than what we normally do, but we talk drug gangs and not that you were a drug gang or anything, but it's just a fascinating story. And I have one final question before we go. And I want you to think about this because this might be a weird question, but I want you to think about your life if you would have had a normal life, right? Let's say you got a job, you didn't leave the pallet factory, and maybe you got a better job or you got a, whatever. But you wouldn't be doing what you're doing now, probably, right? Definitely. So I'll ask you this. Was it all worth it?
Let me tell you this, right?
Think about that. And I know it's a weird question because you did 17 years in the feds behind the wall, but look what you're doing now.
I just wish it was shorter time, man. I didn't need to spend 17 years. Let me say something that your guest probably be like, what? I probably needed to be in prison for 8-9 years, man. That's when I started to change my life. It took 8 or 9 years in prison to wake up and say, you know what, man, I don't want to live like this no more. It's time to, forget about this gang, car stuff, all this bullshit, and change my life, man. And yeah, you know what, man, at the end of the day, it is rewarding, man. And I've made more money, and I'm a firm believer it's okay to make $1 if you're making a difference, right? Yeah. And I help people for free all the time too. But I made more money, man, doing legal work and doing the legal thing than I ever made selling drugs, man. And it's rewarding. It feels good, man, when you get someone out of prison and their mother calls you. I had a Chinese lady call me. I got her son out from prison. Not calling, she wrote me, and she said, hey, just want to thank you, man. And it was in broken English. I thought I'd never see my son again. He was part of that Chinese thing, the flying dragons and all that stuff. And I got
Is that Mr. Fu? Is that what we're talking about here?
Yeah, Wang Jia Fu. Oh, you read about that too?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
You do a lot of research, man. That's what's up.
Yeah, I try to know the people that we're talking to and about.
Yeah, that's what's up, man.
So yeah, I think if there are more Chad Marks in the world, we wouldn't be in the predicament we are in our country right now. You're incredible, man. I hope to meet you one day, and I'd like to have you on again. I urge everyone, go check out what Chad Marks is doing. He's got some really great stories, but I just really think he can help someone maybe that as a kid that's having trouble, or, I think you should be in every school in America. And if you can come to my high school, I think you should go to every high school that will have you, because kids need to hear these things. And maybe you can get through to 1 or 2 or 10, who knows?
I'm ready, man.
Thanks for coming on, man. Just a fascinating story.
Thank you for having me.
Chad Marks, everybody. You can find him on YouTube. Just search Blood on the Razor Wire TV. Really some good editing, too. Some cool intros and things like that. I like the music. And go check out the book, Blood on the Razor Wire. Look, I'm not just telling you to go buy a book because I want him to make money off. I don't think he cares about that, and I don't care about that either. I truly love this book. It's very interesting, and it's fascinating. And Chad just got out of prison less than a year ago. Think about that. All he's done. And he's only been out less than a year. Think about what you've done in the past year. So if you want to make excuses out there, think about Chad and what he's done. He's a picture of what we should be in America. Good for you. Thanks for coming on. We'll talk to you again real soon. Thanks for listening to the Sit Down, everybody. We'll be back next week with another episode. Have a great night. Bye-bye.